Picture a group of young Homo sapiens huddled around a crackling fire, the light flickering across their fur-lined faces. Their voices are low, whispering theories about what happened to the others. In their travels, they've found strange signs, half-carved tools left abandoned, cave walls marked with ochre handprints, and a silence that feels heavy, almost unnatural, in places that should hum with life. The remnants of Neanderthal existence were everywhere, yet the people themselves were gone. For these early humans, the mystery of their absence would have been impossible to ignore. What could wipe out an entire people who were so much like them, intelligent, capable, and resourceful? The Neanderthals weren't the brutish figures they're often imagined to be. They understood their world deeply, just as Homo sapiens did, and in many ways their behaviours mirrored those of their younger relatives. Consider the evidence of Neanderthal creativity. Simple carvings, symbols left on cave walls, and even a likely sense of spirituality seen in intentional burials. A single flower pollen grain found at a Neanderthal burial site in Shanidar suggests that they may have adorned their dead with blooms, a symbolic gesture that hints at a kind of emotional depth. Homo sapiens, wandering into lands once inhabited by these beings, must have seen traces of these practices and recognized them as meaningful. A handprint smeared in red dye, a tool shaped with care but never used. These weren't just objects, they were stories. Yet, just as the artifacts inspired curiosity, they also raised unsettling questions. Reflexively, Homo sapiens may have seen themselves in these traces, a reflection of their own fragility as a species. If another group of toolmakers and hunters, one intelligent enough to survive the brutal Ice Age for hundreds of thousands of years, could disappear, what did that mean for them? For our ancestors seated by that fire, the Neanderthal extinction may have felt less like a mystery to solve and more like a warning to heed. 2. Homo sapiens likely observed something crucial about Neanderthal life that shaped their reflections. Neanderthal groups were small and tightly knit, with little evidence suggesting wide-ranging social networks. Even when they exchanged genes with Homo sapiens, it seemed to be sporadic, a fleeting intertwining of paths rather than a deep, cooperative bond. On the other hand, Homo sapiens frequently formed connections across distances. Trade networks carried beads, shells, and tools hundreds of miles, binding groups together in shared knowledge. It wasn't just the exchange of goods that mattered, it was the exchange of ideas, of adapting to new challenges faster because solutions spread through these networks. This interplay made Homo sapiens stronger collectively, offering a foundation that the socially isolated Neanderthals may have lacked. Food politics too might have come into play. Homo sapiens diversified their diets when hunting became harder or when prey animals migrated. This could mean scavenging, fishing, or even experimenting with plant-based options. Neanderthals, though skilled hunters, seemed to rely more heavily on specific big game like mammoths or bison. When these food sources dwindled, the Neanderthals found themselves hemmed in. Tools of survival, strategies to adapt to scarcity, were ones they used less readily than Homo sapiens. So, when modern humans later glimpsed signs of abandoned hearths or half-burned bones, it may have inspired a sharpened awareness. Survival demanded more than strength. It demanded versatility. But these lessons weren't all based on strategy or practicality. There was an emotional side to this inheritance too. Imagine those Homo sapiens warriors sharing stories by the fire, painting pictures in their minds of the Neanderthals who had come before. Some may have spoken about their encounters with the others, retelling memories handed down, what they looked like, how their faces held a strange familiarity. Others may have speculated whether they disappeared because of brutality, disease, or some kind of bad luck. Whatever the reasons, the disappearance of the Neanderthals wasn't just a matter of survival for Homo sapiens. It would have left its mark on their culture, altering how they viewed the precariousness of life itself. And then there was the unavoidable truth. Part of the Neanderthals lived on in the genes of these Homo sapiens, a silent legacy carried forward. DNA evidence today shows that most modern humans outside of Africa carry traces of Neanderthal ancestry. This too would have stemmed from their encounters. Interbreeding must have left an echo that navigated centuries. Early Homo sapiens wouldn't have known or understood the genetic substance of this connection, but they may have recognized other reminders. Nuances in appearance, similarities in tools, or shared memories that strengthened oddly familiar bonds. The lessons of the Neanderthals' extinction weren't simply intellectual and emotional, they were intrinsically tied to survival itself. Homo sapiens saw the Neanderthals' struggle and eventual disappearance as a reflection of how fragile their own victories could be. Each choice the Neanderthals made, how they hunted, how they socialized, and how they failed to adjust, served as a silent template showing Homo sapiens what worked and what didn't. Picture again that firelit evening. The young warriors recall stories of encounters, interpret the handprints smeared across cold cavern walls, and wonder aloud what the Neanderthal struggle says about their own journey ahead. One acknowledges the warning. Survival isn't guaranteed, success is earned, and triumph can be fleeting. Another speaks of respect for what the Neanderthals were, for how they stood against the cold and hunted the same great beasts. But respect blended with unease. Their extinction was a heavy pause in the flow of human history, a lesson without words, one that wasn't just about survival skills. It was about the responsibility that came after inheriting this quiet earth from those who vanished before you. When the Neanderthals disappeared, it wasn't just a marker for the rise of Homo sapiens. It was a pivotal moment that forced early humans to see themselves in context, not simply as survivors, but as part of something greater. It may have reshaped their understanding of legacy. Choices mattered, cooperation mattered, and adaptability mattered, not just for the present, but for the generations to come. The Neanderthals had shown what happened when these things slipped through one's grasp. The absence of the Neanderthals changed our ancestors' view of survival forever. No longer was survival just a challenge to beat, but something deeper. A fragile web, equally prone to breaking for the strongest of species. The faint echoes of the others shaped Homo sapiens in ways both practical and profound, sharpening their ability to learn, adapt, and innovate. But beyond this, it also planted a seed. What does it mean to inherit this story, this land, this earth, from those who came before?